In today's fast-paced life, have you truly preserved your soul and loved yourself as well as your family in the way that God has taught us? I want to invite you to reflect on how love shapes and defines our lives in the article below. Please like and subscribe to the channel to give me more motivation to create even better videos for you all. First, I want to clarify whether you truly understand what love is and what its value is in our lives today. Love is a sacred and marvelous emotion, a source of life that nourishes the human soul. It is not merely a fleeting feeling or sweet words spoken, but an invisible force that connects people to one another. Love manifests in the protective embrace of a mother for her child, in the cozy, warm moments shared with family, in the gentle yet steadfast hand-holding between friends, and in the quiet, affectionate moments between lovers. These are simple, often unnoticed, moments that, in fact, form the very essence of a meaningful life. However, in today's fast-paced world, where everything is constantly rushing and full of tension, it seems that love is being pushed to the background, overshadowed by the pursuit of material wealth, work, and success. The people living in a society where time is money sometimes forget that love cannot be measured by the hours on a clock or the goals on a to-do list. While we are busy running after time, taking care of our jobs, ourselves, and distant ambitions, love is forgotten in those fleeting moments. We no longer have enough time to look into the eyes of the ones we love, to listen to our parents' stories, or to share our struggles with friends. We continue on, caught in the whirlwind of life, but often forget that it is the simple things that create true happiness. A warm meal with family, a sincere greeting from an old friend, a comforting hug after a long, exhausting day. These are the precious gems of life. Yet when we are too busy with everything else, we begin to overlook these moments, and gradually, we forget how to truly love ourselves. How can we love others if we do not know how to care for and cherish ourselves? When we do not take the time to nurture and care for ourselves, when we are disconnected from our own emotions, how can we genuinely share, understand, and love others? In romantic relationships, we sometimes rush to find a perfect ending, but forget that true love is not something that can be measured by time or grand gestures. Love is in those small, quiet moments, the presence of someone when you need them most, the understanding and silent support that require no words. But in this fast-paced world, how many of us still keep an open heart to love, to feel, and to appreciate these simple yet profound moments? Love is a precious gift, but to keep it, we must learn to love from the smallest things. We must know how to care for ourselves, to listen to our inner voice, and to appreciate the people around us. When we love ourselves enough, we are able to love others more fully and deeply. Those wordless hugs, those tender looks, those questions asked just to show concern. These are all love, and all are worthy of being cherished. But to experience this, we must stop, listen, and open our hearts to the most beautiful moments in our lives. Love is not something we must search for far away. It already exists in the simplest of things, in every breath we take, in every peaceful moment spent with our loved ones. Remember, love has no time, no space, and no definition wide enough to encompass all the deep emotions it brings. Only when we live fully in every moment, only when we learn to love ourselves and those around us, can love truly become the powerful force that helps us overcome challenges and discover true happiness. Now, we will talk about the love of God. The love of God is a love that cannot be fully expressed in words. A love that, even if we searched for 1,000 years, we could not find anything to compare with it in human experience. It is not a love that has limits, nor a love with conditions. The love of God is boundless, unchanging, and always forgiving, waiting for us to return. No matter how lost we may be, God loves us not because we deserve it, but because He is love. One of the most striking examples of God's unconditional love is His sending His only Son, Jesus Christ, to the world to redeem us, as stated in John 3 verse 16. For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. To redeem us sinners, unworthy people, God did not hesitate to sacrifice his one and only Son. This is a love that knows no conditions, a love that, when viewed from a human perspective, is beyond comprehension. How can we understand such a great love when we are so weak and flawed? Another powerful image of God's love is found in the parable of the prodigal son in Luke 15 verses 11 to 32. This story not only teaches us about forgiveness but also vividly illustrates God's immense love for each one of us. The younger son asks for his inheritance and leaves his father's house, living a reckless and wasteful life. When he has spent everything and is left destitute, he decides to return to his father. In that moment, the father doesn't scold or reprimand him, but instead opens his arms wide in acceptance, forgiving him completely, and rejoices in his return. The father says, "For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." This is an image of God, always waiting for us to return. No matter how far we have gone astray, he never abandons us, even in our darkest moments. In Romans 5 verse 8, St. Paul also affirms, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." God's love is not reserved for those who are perfect. It is given to those who are weak, flawed, and sinful. That is why his love is so great and boundless. He loves us even when we don't love him, even when we turn our backs on him. His love doesn't depend on our worthiness. It simply flows from his very nature, which is love itself. One of the most profound and touching teachings on God's love is found in Matthew 5 verse 44, where Jesus says, "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." This is a great challenge to us because the love that Jesus teaches is not limited to those we find easy to love, but extends to our enemies and those who hurt us. This is a command that goes beyond human capacity, but it also reveals the perfection and greatness of God's love for us. He loves us even when we are his enemies, even when we rebel against him. It is in this love that God teaches us how to live in peace and forgiveness. When we learn to love as he does, we are no longer people full of bitterness and resentment, but become people of compassion and reconciliation. Jesus also taught us that love is not merely a fleeting emotion, but an action. In John 15 verse 13, Jesus says, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." God's love is not just words. It is an action of sacrifice, a love that gives without hesitation, a love that endures without tiring. God gave everything for us, and from him, we learn that true love is sacrifice for the sake of others, putting others' needs before our own. God's love is not just about forgiveness. It is also a love that heals. Jesus came to heal the wounds of the soul and to bring peace to those who are suffering. In Matthew 11 verse 28, he invites us, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." God's love is a love of healing, a love that soothes pain, a love that brings true peace to our hearts. With such an unconditional and boundless love, God not only invites us to love him, but also to love one another as he has loved us. In John 13 verse 34, Jesus says, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another." This is the essence of God's love, to love without boundaries, to love without distinction, to love not only those who are easy to love but all those around us, even our enemies and those who have hurt us. From God's immeasurable love, we learn that true love is love without conditions, without seeking perfection, and without end. It is a love that always seeks reconciliation, that always forgives, and that is willing to sacrifice. God's love is the perfect model for us to follow in our lives. Finally, I want to talk about the current situation as well as what and how we can learn from the teachings of God. In today's fast-paced and stressful world, love seems to have become a luxury that we no longer have the time to appreciate. Modern life, with its relentless pace, the demands of work, and constantly changing personal goals, has made us less concerned with the true values of love and affection. Instead of taking the time to listen and understand one another, we are swept up in the rush of daily life, in an endless race against time. In this world, we tend to forget that love is not something that can be bought with material wealth or achieved through outward success, but is a sacred force that comes from the heart, from deep connections between people. We live in a society where everything must be done quickly. Eat quickly, work quickly, travel quickly, and even love must be quick. A message on the phone, a hasty call, short expressions of love through texts. Rarely are these words exchanged in truly meaningful moments. When emotions become as fleeting as this, love easily gets replaced by impatience, loneliness, and distance. Sometimes, we are so busy that we forget to look into the eyes of our loved ones, to feel their pain, joy, or simply their presence. We continue running in the race of life, but forget that those peaceful moments, the smiles of family, or a loving touch are what truly give life value. This is when love begins to fade, when we become numb to ourselves and to the people around us, when we no longer take the time to nurture our souls, to love ourselves, and to care for our relationships. We become emotionally depleted. Even though we may have everything materially, deep in our hearts we feel empty, alone, and lacking in affection. This is the silent suffering that many people in today's society endure. And it is in these moments that we realize that true love is not something we can easily acquire or buy. It is a sacrifice, patience, and openness. So, how can we reclaim love, nourish our souls, and live with one another in true love? As God has loved us, how can we learn from His unconditional love, so that we can love ourselves and those around us? The answer lies in the teachings of Jesus Christ, teachings that are timeless and full of power. Jesus taught us to love not only our loved ones but also strangers, even our enemies. In Matthew 22 verses 37 to 39, He said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself." This commandment is not only a reminder of our love for God, but also our love for ourselves and for others. If we do not love ourselves, if we do not appreciate ourselves, how can we truly love others? And if we do not love others, how can we truly love God, who created us? Loving ourselves is not selfishness. It is about taking care of our souls, our emotions, and the wounds we carry within. It is about understanding and accepting our weaknesses and flaws. When we love ourselves, we do not push ourselves into constant stress and busyness, but instead, we take time to replenish our energy, to listen to ourselves, to live fully in the present moment. Only when we love ourselves can we truly love others, with sincerity and without ulterior motives. In John 15 verse 12, Jesus also said, "My command is this, love each other as I have loved you." This is a profound teaching. Love is not just words but actions. Love is sacrifice, patience, and unconditional forgiveness. The love of Jesus is not just a feeling. It is a concrete action. He loved us even when we betrayed Him, even when we were unworthy, even when we went astray. It is in His love that we learn that true love is not a passing emotion but a persistent choice, an unwavering commitment. Jesus loved us completely, and He calls us to do the same for others. Love even in the face of pain, difficulty, and hardship. Moreover, God's love is a love that does not count the cost, that does not weigh the returns. He loves us even when we might not love Him. He loves us even when we hurt Him. And it is in this love that we learn how to love without conditions, not because we expect something in return, but because it is the right thing to do, because it is the mission that God has given to each of us. Luke 6 verses 27 to 28 teaches us, "But I tell you who hear me, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you." When we learn to love like this, we not only transform our own lives, but we also change the world around us. This unconditional love has the power to transform even the hardest hearts, and it will be the foundation for a society full of empathy and peace. To nourish love in our lives, we must learn to stop, look into the eyes of our loved ones, and truly listen to them with our hearts. We must learn to be patient, forgiving, and concerned with the little things, the acts of kindness, the words of encouragement that we often think are insignificant. But it is these small gestures that form the foundation of lasting love. We also need to remember that love is not only for others. It must also be for ourselves. Only when we know how to love and care for ourselves can we spread that love to others. In conclusion, to live in true love, we must learn to love as God has loved us, unconditionally, without counting the cost, loving even when there is no return. When we do so, we will find true peace in our hearts, and love will be the strength that helps us overcome all challenges in life, build meaningful relationships, and create a world full of compassion and love.